I think. Make sure. Yep, there it goes. Okay, recording's up. Fire away.
Hello, I'm David Pasturi from the University of Detroit Mercy. I'm industry liaison and clinical professor of engineering.
Hello, I am Dave Skippers. I am from Walsh College, and I am the chair of the Information Technology Decision Sciences Department and an assistant professor for cybersecurity.
And I'm Daryl Clanky. I'm with the graduate professional programs at the University of Detroit Mercy and also a former automotive engineer for many, many years.
Okay, good. All right, ready?
Ready.
Yeah.
Hello, I'm David Pasturi with Automation Alley R&D, and welcome to our next podcast. Today, we've got a very special guest, Dave Shippers from Walsh College. He is assistant professor of computer science. He's also chair of the IT and decision science department. Dave, welcome.
Thank you.
In addition, we've got Daryl Clanky from Automation Alley R&D. Daryl also plays a dual role at the University of Detroit Mercy. And Dave is going to represent the academic world, and Daryl is going to be devil's advocate and represent the industry sector. Today we're going to talk about cybersecurity. And that's a hot topic for everybody. So Dave, let me pose the first question here. From your perspective, how is Industry 4.0 reshaping how universities and colleges educate students?
Well, I'll say at a high level, the reshape, I think, is frankly pushing some boundaries in general. And I say that because I think that higher education, we've kind of lived in our pillars, if you will, over the years. So we've traditionally taught I'll say IT, or we've taught cybersecurity, or we've taught engineering, and we've kind of viewed all these as disparate, separate pillars. You choose one of these pillars, and then you go out into industry, and then you perfect that over your career, et cetera. What you're seeing with Industry 4.0, in my opinion, is that you're starting to see the walls between the traditional pillars, they're breaking down. All right. And you're seeing skill sets are starting to have to merge, right? So engineers have to learn cyber, right? Cyber has to start to learn engineering concepts. So those are the things that, I think are going to shift. And those are going to be the things that force education to, I'll say, sit back and kind of go, okay, what do I do and how do I keep up with this? In general, I would say academia is not, they're not a sprint. They're not a sprinter, if that makes sense. So
it does.
They don't necessarily move at a fast pace. And I'm not trying to be insulting. It's just that's been the nature of academia for a long time. And I think going forward, Industry 4.0 is going to challenge the concept of, like, I can speak from experience, the time that it takes to try to design a new degree program, get approvals, roll that out, start it. You can literally see the time frame for that to happen and get your first batch of students through that program. You may see the need for that disappear in that cycle time.
Right. Interesting.
I definitely, one of the other big challenges that I think it is a problem for higher ed. I think ultimately the students are going to be the ones that are going to bear the brunt of some of it. And we obviously have to help them. So imagine you're a high school student right now, guys.
Right.
Okay.
A long time ago, Dave.
Right. I know it's been a while for all of us. It's been a really long time for me. I can speak from experience there. But so imagine you're back in high school and you're sitting here and you're going, I'm a STEM person. I really like STEM. What do I pick? And you've got this thing, especially if you're here in, you're in greater Detroit, you want to be a part of the manufacturing base that is, part of the history, and I'll say the spirit of Detroit. And all of a sudden, here's Industry 4.0 looming, right? You have to choose, I'll somewhat satirically quote the, from Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, right? Choose wisely, right? Yes. The problem is if I choose a degree program that all of a sudden the desire tanks in that 4-year cycle, I literally walk out with a degree that nobody wants to hire.
Right.
So that's kind of the challenge. And in my opinion, I think, as higher ed, we have to realize cycle times that we've been used to
Mhm.
historically. Yeah, if you're clinging on to that, it's not going to go well.
Yep.
That's my
And
opinion.
I want to pick up on something from my industry friends out there. You said hiring, and so when it comes to Industry 4.0, and particularly cybersecurity, and I'm out here as an industry person, should I wait for universities to start producing cybersecurity people, or can I count on academia to put that cybersecurity knowledge in that traditional engineer that I would hire? Or, quite frankly, I'm used to buying antivirus on my computer. Do I need this stuff at all? Should I just take my chances and see what happens? Help me out here. I'm dying.
What I would say is I would strongly recommend you don't take your chances, right? Now, from a delivery perspective, I think there are programs out there trying to do the right thing, and I think that's important. The one thing I would say, if you're hiring, is and I'll lean towards the concept of. And I've actually had conversations with employers who are frustrated with exactly what you're saying. They're saying,
Right.
listen, if I go to hire a cyber person, they're like, everybody thinks they're going to be a red team rock star. I'm going to walk around and everybody
Mhm.
thinks, I'm going to live this life of fame. And then all of a sudden I
Yeah.
show up and it's basically, to be honest with you, sometimes the tactical stuff within cyber is kind of drudgery. It's tedious, it's repetitive, but you have to
Right.
stay focused and vigilant,
Mhm.
right? So there's kind of this, I thought I was going to be a rock star, and it turns out I'm a coal shoveler. So there, and
Yeah.
then all of a sudden, wait a minute, I'm going to try to go get hired somewhere else. I actually had a conversation with a gentleman who said, I'm constantly hiring, and they think they're going to be a rock star, and they leave, and then they land with somebody else and end up sticking there.
Mhm.
So what I would say is, I would recommend to industry people is frankly partnering with institutions, the ones that are willing, and I
Okay.
can speak, I'll speak for, Walsh, what we're doing. I think there's other institutions out there doing the same. I'm guessing you guys are probably doing some of the same. I
Mhm.
think, and I'm not an engineer, so correct me if I'm wrong. I got the impression that, from an engineering degree program, I think you guys kind of do this, I'll say, apprenticeship approach. You try to make sure that they're developing the skill sets they need when they land, right? What's happening is, I'll say, at least from our program perspective, we're focusing on skills, okay? And we're trying to
Okay.
make sure that skill focus aligns with what industry wants. And that, now, I can't say we're gonna give you 100% of what you need for skills. What I will say is, I think that we're gonna build that transition time in a way that it's shrunk. And what do I mean by that? So when I was still in industry hiring, and when I hired grads out of an IT or a cyber program, I'd have a 1 to 2 year cycle time to get them up to speed. That's too long, in my opinion. That
Right.
is way too long. So what we've done is said, we need to structure this program so that you walk out. Yes, you understand theory, you understand critical thinking, but I also need to develop the hands-on skills so you can hit the ground running. All right. Now, they may not know the exact system or software that you run, right? Maybe they got trained on this and then you just bought something that's brand new. That's going to be typical, but they should have the core skills to navigate that pretty well and then transition in a shorter period of time. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I would say from you're speaking my language here now, is from the industry side. Give me somebody that's ready to go, and so I don't have to teach them cybersecurity, because quite frankly, I don't know anything about it, and it's not my core business. So I'm hoping the graduates that you send me are indeed ready to go. I want to ask you another thing though. You said it was like treat them, they're like rock stars or so, but from my perspective as a potential employer, I'm thinking I'm buying an insurance policy, right? It's really a loss prevention. It's not going to be a return on investment for me, other than I'm just trying to prevent somebody from a cybersecurity perspective from coming in and hacking into my systems. Am I going to get a return on investment out of this person?
I think the question, I'd like to shift that perspective. I'll say that because I think one of the things that, especially as I'll say based off the different research and groups that I've worked with, you're right. A lot of people looked at it as I'm buying an insurance policy so I don't get stung, right?
Right.
The problem is there are so many threats in the digital ecosystem now. This is about, it's basically like, why do you buy a generator for your business?
Mm-hmm.
Because if the power goes out, you need that generator, right? So that you can continue to function and you have a revenue stream, right?
Right.
So that's risk management and risk mitigation, right? So you as an industry person, I'll distill this down really, really simple. If you take let's just take all the technology stuff and let's just throw that out of this discussion.
Okay.
What this comes down to is risk strategy. If you're doing business on the internet, or if you have a physical plant somewhere, you may have physical threats. You've got all these different problems that you have to face, right? So you may have, we also have risks like, will our staff show up today, right? That's probably pretty slim, right? But
Mm-hmm.
cash flow risks, supply chain risks, this is just another risk. Okay. Now, when you hire a cybersecurity person, they should provide you with two things, depending upon the position and the size of your organization. They should be able to distill that concept of risk into plain business terms. All right.
Okay.
So we should be able to explain that in a way of, yeah, it's more than antivirus. There's some other things, because those threats are what happens if John brings in a USB that's what he puts his stuff on. He plugs it into my robot on the Industry 4.0, assembly line, and he didn't realize there was a virus in it. And now it takes out my assembly line. If that assembly line, let's say that assembly line, if it doesn't run, you lose $1 million an hour. Okay.
Right.
That's a problem. That's a risk, right?
Yeah.
So now, I don't know if I've explained that well in shifting. Some people are still going to view that as an insurance policy, but those people, I'll say, additionally, they should also have, depending on the position you hire, technical skills to expedite that risk mitigation.
Yeah.
Right.
They should have both.
Yeah.
So when you hire a cyber person, look at it this way. If you're a business owner, okay, let's say you're both business owners. If you're saying, hey, I'm going to hire somebody. Now, if you're a small manufacturer, you may have to hire one person, right? They're going to need to be able to do both things for you. They're going to be able to work with you strategically to build a vision in a process that your organization uses to ensure cybersecurity, right? Because it's not, there's people processes that can get impacted as well, right? But there's also that, what antivirus do I have? What firewall settings do I need? What else do I need to consider? What do I need to configure on the robot so that we reduce the risks on that? What about the other sensors on the assembly line?
Let me ask something there, Dave, because when you're talking about configuring stuff, because I'm more of a product guy than a manufacturing guy, to be honest with you. And if I hire this person, can I get my return on investment by that? Will that person be able to embed cybersecurity into the products I sell to my customers, especially if they're, digitally controlled type stuff? Will I get my money back?
I would argue, so we know based off studies and the different information that's coming out with cyber is that if you embed the security discussions at the beginning, you will save. The cost savings is considerable when it's done on the front side for your product than patching it on at the end. So yes, I would argue if you were saying, hey, we're going to hire this person, we're going to bring them in, and when we're in engineering phase, right? Okay, so I'm talking to the engineers, right? So right, yay, we're not that different, guys. We're really not. But so when you sit down and say, I'm going to design this product, okay, some of those discussions and some of the training and some of the back and forth should be, hey, do you guys realize that when you're configuring an ECU for that particular unit. If you go to firmware version 3.4, it's going to knock out 90% of the vulnerabilities we could have in that particular ECU. Now, an engineer may not know that. We may not require that of them, but guess what? If we bring in a cyber person and they're trained well and then they get up to speed, they should be worth their salt and help you do that, help you navigate that.
Yeah. Let me jump in here. One final question before we wrap her up. One of the things that's a topic of discussion, both in industry and in academia, are the question of developing certificates, badges, and micro-credentialing. Dave, how do you see that impacting cyber? I mean, is cyber involved in that sort of thing?
Yeah, there's a lot of different groups that are looking at, frankly, the IT and cyber industry in general. There's certifications have been out there for a while, right? I'll say some of the perspectives are, hey, just, get your degree and whatever, and then go get a cybersecurity or certification and you're okay. I would say, depending on the content of what you go through for that, it may suffice. It also depends on it. Now, I'll say from a credentialing perspective, that can work, in my opinion, if it's done correctly. But again, what I would say, and I'll say we've had discussions with different employers to say, hey, if you want, I'll almost like custom training, custom coursework, things like that, and you want to put that into a micro-credential format, if that works for them and we can deliver their needs, that's definitely an option. So a lot of that is going to have to do with what are the needs of the hiring organization or the organization that's looking for that, and then what can we provide and what's in our wheelhouse. I'm not. I can't obviously speak to every particular situation. In some cases, I would say it may not work. In some cases, it will. The short answer is it depends. But it really has to do with, we'll let the devil's advocate sound off here, but I think it really has to do, if I can't meet their needs, here's the other thing is higher ed. If I can't meet your needs, I got to be honest, right? Yeah. I got to say, I can't meet those needs. Or if they come in and say, I need you to get my entire engineering staff cyber secure thinking in one training session, I'm going to probably say, no way, Jose, right? Because that's not it would be similar to me. It'd be similar to me saying, hey guys, I got a bunch of cybersecurity people. They need to be valid engineers after one training session. It's not going to happen, right? It's a discipline. But again, it really has to do with what are your needs, how big are those needs, and how can we meet them?
Daryl, what do you have to say to this?
Let me jump on that because it's like a lot of small businesses we talk with all the time, and in many cases they'll have one or two individuals that show some tech savvy, and I think of it could either be an engineer that wants to add on, or it could even be someone that's been working, maybe working the floor, doesn't have an engineering degree, but ready to do some retraining. Do you think these micro credentials, should I encourage those folks to go back and pick up a course, or can they learn it on their own by looking on YouTube or something? Where should I point my employees is my question.
Good question.
So actually, that's a good question. That's sometimes a hard question to answer. But what I would say is, depending on the person, I think that can work. And I say that because I think if you have a really solid person that understands, I'll kind of cut right to the point. If they're really good with troubleshooting and I'll say critical thinking and system thinking, like some people innately do that well. We don't have, right? I would say in engineering, you guys probably do very similar things. And you'll have people that you come across that they're just kind of wired that way, right? Those people, it's not everybody, but those people, I would say, you can take those people and say, hey, you know what? Go out, get a micro credential, get a couple of, if they got a talent. And the biggest thing outside of some base core skills is, are they passionate about it?
Yes, that makes a big difference.
Yeah, if they're super interested, here's the thing, as in hiring an industry, I had two things I looked for, no matter what the technical position was. And I was more than willing to train the skills I needed. One, can they exhibit critical thinking and demonstrate that to me under duress?
Right. Good
Okay.
point.
Under duress. Because frankly, I can
Yeah.
tell you from personal experience, when Russia's trying to kick in your firewall, it's not going to be a good day, week, or potentially a month. They don't go quickly, right? So you have to
Right.
think well under pressure. And do you have a passion for that content or material? If they genuinely are interested in trying to help your organization be more secure and they're tech savvy and they like that stuff, then I would say micro credentials are probably a great option for them. It's going to be less expensive. And it's going to give, if they already have those two critical items, they're gonna move way faster. I'll say than somebody who goes, oh, if you give me extra money, I'll do it. Do you know what I mean? There's
Yep.
there's different mindsets there. I'll do it if you pay me. And there's a, hey, I'd really like to do this for you. Is there any options we have for this? If they're genuinely interested and passionate, I think they'll be able to do that with quote less, less formal large education, if that makes sense.
Yep.
Yeah.
And thanks so much, Dave. We've had a special guest today, Dave Shippers from Walsh College, assistant professor of computer science. He's also the chair of the Information Technology and Decision Science Department. That must keep you pretty busy, Dave.
Very.
And as always, kudos to my colleague here at Automation Alley R&D, Daryl Klenke. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks, guys.
That was great.
Does that work?